Hello and welcome to How Do I video series for Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. My name is Yasmin Katunes and I'm Microsoft Dynamics NAV Escalation Engineer. Throughout this video, I will show you how to use application merge utilities to handle merge of object documentation triggers. At the end of this video, you will be familiar with different merge output options when merging object documentation trigger and how to select the option best matching your needs. So let's start by running Dynamics NAV PowerShell. Simply type PowerShell and you can use the one provided with NAV product DVD. Running this one will upload all NAV specific commandlets for you. For the purpose of this video, I will be using demo data also provided on product DVD, and you'll find it in a product DVD folder, Windows PowerShell scripts, application merge utilities, and demo data. I have copied contents of this folder to a separate location. Also notice that the folders here contain demo data used in merge process, and the result folder is at the moment empty until we have executed the merge process. To further simplify this task, I will actually be using the Powershell Ise, so start that up as administrator. This is basically user interface that will allow you to write and debug, test, execute your scripts, also providing functionalities like tab completion and single line execution and so forth. So the first thing we have to do is import the NAV specific module, and if you type import module, you can navigate to DVD location. The tools module is located in your client folder, so select that one. And if you scroll down, you'll find Microsoft Dynamics NAV tools module. When using Ise, we can select to execute a single statement or the whole script. In this case, it's one and the same, so we'll just mark this line, then execute. And we have uploaded tools module. Next step, I'll navigate to my demo data folder, the one I have copied to separate location. And execute this line. Before we proceed, let's first have a look at the objects we'll be merging. So if I navigate to my demo data folder that I copied to a separate location and have a look at this object, this is the one we'll be using in merge. So navigate all the way, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll find a documentation trigger. Contains some description and 2 timeline entries. If we now check the same object in modified folder, you'll find the same documentation trigger plus 1 additional timeline entry. And accordingly, just in a target folder, shows again the same documentation trigger plus 1 additional but different timeline entry. Now let's look at the options we have when merging all these 3 objects. So type merge NAV application object, provide the original path, modified, target, and the result path. Next, we have a documentation conflict parameter, and that is the parameter we will use now to control the output of the merge of these objects. So if you just add that one and tab, you'll get the list of available values for this parameter. Let's first have a quick look at what each of these values means. So if you type get help and then merge and add detailed at the end, you'll get a detailed overview over commandlets and their parameters and usage, including examples. Now if you scroll all the way up, you'll find the documentation conflict parameter. So this parameter has three values: strict, modified first, and target first. Strict value, that is the value you use when you just want to simply merge contents of documentation triggers like any other code lines. So typically use this when you want to just simply merge all the technical description, for example, that you have in your documentation triggers. Next is the modified first trigger. This is basically the default value, and you use this one when you want to line the changes from your modified object first in the resulting object. So typically this trigger would be used if your documentation trigger contains a list of time entries documenting changes in the object, and you want those changes from the modified object to be listed first in the resulting object. And the same goes for target first. If your documentation trigger just contains a list of versioning entries and you want your target changes to be listed first in the resulting object. So let's now execute merge using each of these values. We'll start with modified first. So select that and mark the line and execute merge. And we can have a look at the resulting folder. So as you can see, the documentation trigger has been merged, listing the lines from the modified object first. So this is the additional entry we've added to the modified object, and this is the additional entry that was listed in the target object. Right? So let's execute the merge one more time. This time we'll be using the strict parameter. Now, as I have already executed merge once, I already have files in my result folder, and to prevent the prompt where I'm asked if I want to overwrite my files, I can use the force parameter. In this way, my existing files will be overwritten automatically. So run this line. And have a look at the resulting file. So as you can see, the documentation trigger here has been merged just like any other code would have been merged, with the conflicts clearly outlined. So if you want to be sure you have a full control over all the changes in the object and the documentation trigger correctly specifies all the changes made, you might want to go for this merge option. And then naturally you need to resolve these conflicts in the documentation trigger manually, just as you would have to do with any other object conflicts. And finally, let's look at the outcome when merge using target first parameter value. Okay, and mark the line. And if you have a look at the outcome, you'll see that like with modified first, this just lists the object changes in a certain order, in this case with target changes first, and then changes from the modified object. So to summarize, in this video we have merged application objects and discussed different options of documentation conflict parameter to resolve documentation trigger conflicts. We've looked at the different values of this parameter and different outcomes of documentation trigger merge depending on the selected value. Thank you for listening in, and I hope you'll join me in another presentation in this How Do I Application Merge Utilities series of videos.